Welcome to our space where talking about the inspiring things with inspiring people is what inspires us. Waiting for you here are the infinite possibilities that creation, collaboration, and connection have to offer. A universe where we see everything through rose-tinted spectacles that help us to keep our faith in the power of imagination alive and well. And now, let's talk. Hello everyone, welcome to this episode of Metralla Rosa. Today we are going to be talking with Mai Nguyen Tri.
Very difficult to pronounce. Mai Nguyen Tri.
Mai Nguyen Tri. It's a beautiful name. She is Franco-Vietnamese. It's a Butoh dancer, a Zen Punk Butoh dancer, and she has been drawing inspiration from water since at least 20 years. She arrived to London 30 years ago, more or less, and from Brittany. And since then, she has been creating a body of work related with the movement to express universal truth through the body. And I'm very happy to talk with Mai today, especially because you have been always interested in water, and right now there is a very important conjunction in the atmosphere related with two big planets, Jupiter and Neptune, both in Pisces. Do you feel different these days from the rest of your life? Because it's a very, very important conjunction. I would say a historical one. And being someone so interested in water, I wonder if you have been feeling something different.
I must say, in the last week, it's I've been feeling even more crazy than usual. Which is the full moon was very powerful to me, as it always is. But even though the full moon has finished, I still feel rather swimming in space.
Yeah.
This maybe astrology could explain that to me, but yeah, I definitely felt like I was swimming in big wavy space at the moment.
Me as well. Actually, doing the introduction of this interview, I felt like really floating. And I would like to know, apparently you arrived to, apparently I mean because of the material I found online about you, you arrived to London because you were interested in literature and in poetry. You weren't a dancer at that point of your life.
That's right.
Tell me please, because it's all, for me it is obvious that in your language as a Butoh dancer, there is a lot of influence from poetry and words. Can you please tell me why are you here? Why are you in London? What brought you here?
Well, I was studying English poetry and English literature, and I was attracted to London also for the reasons for the music, the punk new wave, and the clothes and the fashion at the time in the 80s. But from my own training as in literature, I think I came to London also for that reason, yes, because I was studying English literature. I soon realized that there was something missing in my being a writer or writing poetry or reading or seeing the world and reality through literature and words, because I've always been very physical. So at one point I realized that I needed to bring poetry with movements, or poetry through my physicality. And because I was swimming a lot and doing a lot of yoga and being super fit and very physical anyway, feeling very sensitive to the full moon, to the cold, to the heat, to the as a physical body. One day I realized that it clicked perfectly to put poetry into movements, and some people might say it's a perfect definition of what dance is, but
especially Butoh dancer.
especially Butoh, that's what I was going to say.
Because it's fascinating the fact that it's a way of seeing movement more connected with the unconscious body, that with the search for beauty in a very stereotypical way. When you see
Definitely.
Butoh dancers, they try to express themselves with a truth that it maybe is deeper and much more complex than the sense of a beautiful movement in a traditional sense. Was that something important when you started working with Butoh dance?
Definitely. I mean, there are many definition of Butoh, and it's very difficult to define even for the Butoh experts or Butoh masters. If you ask the question, what is Butoh? It's very, very difficult to define it, because it's the essence of Butoh that it can't be defined, which
Okay.
is something that I like as well. But one of the definition that is often used is dance of darkness. The one of the two founders of Butoh, Hijikata, used this definition himself. So it's actually the opposite of what traditional dance was trying to portray, a reality turned into beauty, something beautiful. The human body was more and more up in the air and tall and reaching the skies, and everything was turned into beauty through ballet or through beautiful dance or gracefulness. Actually, Butoh was, from the beginning, I think, was trying to reconcile with the yin and yang of the human condition, which is dark as well as light. So coming to terms with what is painful, what is ugly, what is grotesque, what is violent, what is painful,
What is refined, what is elevated, all those things.
Exactly. This is how I see it myself. That's why I like to see it as like very dark, but also light, and maybe that's how I see it from my Zen approach to Butoh. Obviously, every Butoh practitioner might see it differently, but this is how I see it myself.
And you were commenting in an interview I was listening that you are actually a very urban person, but at the same time, because you come from a part of the world, Brittany, that is close to the coast, and there's a lot of water and the ocean, and surrounded by water by everywhere because it's a peninsula. You also feel very, very connected with that, with the specific element of nature, which is water or the sea or the beach. And how have you managed to live in London all this time? I know UK is an island as well, but you don't feel the sense of being close to the water. At least not I personally don't
Yes.
feel it. How
I think
How
for
is
me, as a coincidence, just accidentally, when I arrived in London, like nearly 40 years ago now, I ended up in the East End, and very close to the canal, very close to the Thames, and
so water was there?
yes, I think that probably helped me climatize and get used to big city, big London. I mean, we are never really far from the sea. When you're in London, you know, Brighton is 1 hour away from where I live, or if you go east, it's 1 hour and a half or
It's
something.
true. It's a matter of perspective.
Yeah, and also I believe the tides that the Thames experiences. You have high tide and low tide, and I think I pick it up a bit. Being a water person, I do feel the sense of high tide and low tide being so closely located to the Thames. I mean, my house is it's only like 10 minutes cycle distance from the Thames. And so when I first arrived in London, but also quite a lot now, I had to spend a lot of long walks or bicycle rides along the Thames or along the canal. Yeah, I spend a lot of time near water. And when it's not possible, because my life is a city urban life, I just have to jump in the bus 3 times a day. Sorry, it's not very environmentally friendly at the moment to admit it, but it's for the community.
But it's needed for your own safety.
For my own sanity.
Exactly. And so, what came first? Your love for water or the dance? Did you wanted always to emulate somehow the amazing power that water have? I remember not long ago I was reading a beautiful novel about a Japanese character, and this character was defining, I guess, in Asian horoscopes. You have zodiac signs.
Mm-hmm.
You have definitions by element, same as with our astrology. But she was saying that this character, that her mom was pure water, and then she started to describe how that feel. And she said that one of the beauty of water is that it doesn't have any shape in particular, but it takes all the shapes and goes everywhere. Like it penetrates whatever have the opportunity to try to navigate. And I felt like that definition was actually beautiful, because you feel like it's not restrictive or constrictive. It's actually very fluid and immense. It's like infinite. Is that the way you would like to dance? Is that the way you would like to move? Is that what you are always chasing through your body to emulate that power?
I think it's not a conscious. I think my movements are not conscious. I think the moment I start dancing or the moment I'm on stage, I think I go on a different way of being, or different approach to. So it's not a deliberate or conscious.
It's not rational.
No, it's not rational. But I do imagine that. It's a little bit like dancing with the gravity, or dancing in the air. So you have a sort of resistance, like you have in water. You have to push the water, but you also have to go with it. You can't fight it. Water is stronger than you. You can't go against it. You have to go with the flow, go with the ride. So it's a little bit like saying, as a Butoh dancer, I don't dance. The dance takes me. I am being danced.
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
I think it is
beautiful.
Yes, I like that definition of dance, or Butoh dance, I think it's a little bit the same for when I feel connected to the water. When I swim, there is an element of, you have to let go. You have to let go of the flow. You have to accept being pushed by the waves, or you have to accept being like floated by something else, by a force that is beyond you. And that's how I see it.
That's
really, but it's also really the water inside you, I think, that is connecting. I mean, we said I'm not a scientist, but I think it's something like 80% of our bodies is water. Or is it 80 or something
it's
like
a
that?
lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot. I think it's 80% of the
Yeah, I heard.
human body.
So I think it's probably what also makes it the water inside and the water outside. You connect suddenly, and I think it's one element of Butoh dance that I'm interested in as well, is the connection with the matter outside, the connection with the other people, the connection with the universe, the connection with the moon, with the water, with the air, at the moment of dance.
And with whom did you started learning Butoh? I know, for example, most of people maybe they think you are Japanese, and this is a Japanese tradition, but you aren't. So, how comfortable do you feel representing this kind of tradition in the modern world?
Yes, it's an interesting question because I dislike deeply any cultural appropriation, because I feel like I'm very proud of my cultures, and I feel very humble when I approach other people's nature. So I'm not Japanese, I'm French, Vietnamese, Eastander. After 40 years in London, I'm a little bit of a Londoner as well.
I think you're more Londoner than anything else at the moment.
Yeah, I'm a mixture. But what I like about Butoh is that because it's not so clearly defined with specific steps or specific aesthetic, then I think Butoh can be applied to any culture. I don't want to be pretending I'm Japanese or dance with a kimono, or even though some elements of my practice might remind other people of the Japanese dance culture or the no theater, particularly the being painted all in white. They're always like, oh, that looks a bit like geisha, or that looks a little bit like no theater or kabuki. Personally, I like to put my Frenchness and my Vietnamese-ness and my urban Londonness into my Butoh.
And all your water.
or my being an animal.
Your liquidness. And I know it's a difficult question, and it probably doesn't need a specific answer, but your mere presence is bringing that Vietnamese element, that French element. But is it there any particular prop or something you try to use to remind people where are you coming from, or where do you think you come from, or it's not important?
No, it's not important. It's more inside. It's more inside, I think. No.
It's more true, the whole you.
No, I don't really. I mean, even though I'm proud of my cultures, I'm proud of Vietnam and France and whatever experience that's been positive in my life. More than anything else, I believe in no borders in the world, and I wish passports and countries didn't exist. I think for me there are no. I feel more connected to you. It doesn't matter where you were born, or I think it's passports and national identities are invented by all the people and the system that I don't necessarily agree with, and it creates a lot of violence and separateness, when at the end of the day I believe we're all
one thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I was wondering, because I had a bit of that circumstance myself, the fact that you came to London, but your mother language was French and Vietnamese as well?
I don't actually speak Vietnamese.
Okay, so
well,
French.
I used to speak baby language when I was a baby, but being brought up in France by my Vietnamese father, I I can't. It's the biggest regret of my life because I have so much such a big family in Vietnam who I feel very close to, but I don't actually speak Vietnamese.
Well, it's never too late.
No, never too late.
Never too late. The fact that maybe English to express yourself with words wasn't as easy as French, that connected you with your own body to create another form of expression that could be superior in the sense of go further and the limitations of words or the circumscription of meanings inside of the words. Do you think your searching to expression through the body had something to do with the language barrier when you arrived here?
The first maybe 10 years of my life in London, I was writing in French as much as I was writing in English. I sometimes was a bit puzzled why I was suddenly switching my writing from one language to another. But I believe it's been very useful to experience my poetry or my writing or my consciousness in a language that wasn't my mother tongue. I think it gives you a sort of distance,
Detach, yeah.
that makes you more able to have control in a way. I think your mother tongue is so part of you that
ingrained in you.
It's very difficult to manipulate it and change it and turn it into a poetical language. Whereas in the English language, I felt I had more freedom to do that because it wasn't my mother tongue. So it didn't come like spontaneously or as instinctively as my mother tongue.
Oh, that's interesting. That's very interesting.
But I think in the history of literature, quite a few writers have written in another language
because they feel more this freedom you're talking about.
Yes, yeah. I think it's a different way to do it. Yeah.
And when did you started your family? Because it is quite interesting that you work so closely with your family. I wonder how have you grown creatively and how the circumstance of having children have challenged or also your art.
Well, obviously being a mother, you have less time to concentrate on your art, and
is that good or bad?
Well, personally, I'm one of these person who needed to have children. I always say, if I hadn't been grounded by my children, I would probably have been like flying into space a bit too early in my life. At least my children grounded me, and
they gave you a sense of responsibility of belonging
responsibility is not a word that is very I don't really like that word, to be honest.
I also have two kids.
The belonging, definitely, that's a very important word for me, and connection and belonging and feeling part of is very important for me. I had my children very well. I was quite young. I was 24, sorry. So
same here.
Yes,
with
I mean
first one.
Nowadays, or in our generation,
for my generation, I was very young.
Yeah, it felt quite young compared to my friends around me and so on. But I wanted to have my children early.
Why did you feel a strong physical need as well? Because you are so physical, I wonder if it was also related with an instinctive need coming through your body.
No, I think it was that sense of because I'm such a spaced out person who flies a bit too easily in the universe. I think I needed
was
to
more
have
than-
that. Yeah, what we said before, that belonging, that feeling part of somebody, feeling you relate to somebody on a physical, emotional. Yeah, I think that's what. Also, I've always been an insomniac, so as a joke, but I wondered how much it was of a joke. I was so bored being an insomniac on my own at night. I was hearing horrendous stories about parents who couldn't sleep because their babies were kept them awake. But I was like, oh, this is good for me. I could play with them in the night instead of being bored on my own.
Solution for all my problems.
Solve my boredom at night. So
With all of them, you work as closely as you do with Swan. Swan, is it his name?
Swan, yes, Swan. My daughter, we're very, very close as well, and she's also an artist. But we don't work so much together on specific project. But her being an artist, she's very and being very close to each other as well. She guides me a lot. She guides me, and she has a more conceptual approach to art, which is useful as well. With Swan, we're more similar in a sort of a sensual and
Sensorial.
yes, our approach, our personality is quite similar. So very soon, when he was maybe 15 or still a teenager, he had been part of my beginning to make a dance project and dancing, and I was dancing a lot at home because I couldn't go to a studio and leave my children alone, so I was dancing at home. I had big mirrors as soon as they were leaving me a bit of space. Without the toys or without the I was always dancing in my living room at the time. So he grew to really get to know what my dance was about and where it came from, and
he couldn't understand better than anyone else.
Exactly. So very soon when he started making music at home, and he just understood me, like I didn't even have to explain to him. I probably had to say, oh, I think in part 1, part 2, part 3, just a couple of words for each part and just a couple of themes. That was it. I didn't have to explain more. I said, Mom, I know what you mean.
Oh my God.
And that's it. So we understand each other so well. He's now nearly 30. And so it's been nearly like 15 years of me and him collaborating, him making music and me dancing on his music and just adapting. And he's also a visual artist.
Yeah,
makes
he does an amazing
installation.
work. We were looking up at his work yesterday, and he's great. He's great.
Yes, very inspired. His wife is also an artist, so she has a very she has very artistic eyes as well, and so she's part of the team also now as a singer, but also for many years because they lived until quite recently together in my home. She was making a lot of my costume because she's a tailor and a costume designer, so it was like brilliant for me. I had a musician and a costume designer at home, and my daughter not far away from my home. Yes, very
so
lucky.
lucky. You know, in general, I have seen around me and my own experience that sometimes it doesn't matter how intensely you live your own art or your own way of expressing yourself. Most of times your children, they need their own identity, and part of creating that identity is to detach from you. So
Yeah.
they start creating a big separation with time and years. Then you come back together most of times. But
Maybe at one point
you are lucky.
we will have to separate and spend a bit less time creatively in life.
did you
but-
ever felt that you were jeopardizing somehow their own way of expression?
Perhaps perhaps it's possible. Perhaps they'll have to experiment separately from me a bit more. At the moment in London, it's very convenient, and it's very. They also, both my children have young children, so it's important that we are close for practical reasons as well. But it's also good to learn. I like being close to them because they teach me and I teach them, and I'm very easy to get on well with on a relationship level or friendship level. But and then as for artistic collaboration, like a lot of artists, I think my visions are always so precise that unless I connect really like instinctively or sensually or I don't know how essentially I don't know which word to use, but unless I spontaneously connect with collaborators, if it doesn't click, it doesn't click.
But you have me. It is incredible because I know you have your own solo Butoh style, which is probably different from all the work you do with others.
Yes.
But you collaborate with an important amount of very creative and interesting talents from the London scene.
Yes.
And okay, I would like to go through all of them slowly. But first, I also I wonder how much of what we see on stage and looks very spontaneous and looks very improvised, how much preparation do you actually need to go to that place with that sense of comfort and freedom?
Yes, it's an interesting question. Improvisation is a very, I mean, for people who don't know, they think like it's just dancing about and just go with the flow and be free, but it's actually, I personally like to structure my improvisation and work even more than well, not even more, you can compare, but I need a lot of preparation for improvisation, but also a lot of long-term work with the people I'm improvising with. It's very difficult to improvise with people you don't know on a personal level, on a musical level, on a spiritual level or human level. So that's why even though I do perform and collaborate with a few different bands and musicians, and they are all very long-term collaborators, like over 10 years. So after 10 years of...
You are a keeper.
Yes, I'm definitely.
With your kids, with the area of London where you live. I can see that it's all about time with you. It's all about time.
Yes, it's a good way of a keeper.
I mean, obviously you embrace change, and obviously you are open to the dynamism of life, but you are also someone that builds very long-term relationships with places and people. Not only with people, also with places.
I'm a people's person. I'm not very good, even though I love doing solo. I don't like to work on my own. I actually find it meaningless. I like to work for others, with others. On my own, I find it pointless. I like, even if I've done some on my own, I work for something outside of me, not just for my own ego, for my own career or my own little plan on my own. So, yes, I like to build up very long relationship with collaborators.
They say that art is mostly therapeutic, more for the artist than for the audience. The artist itself is always healing or working on something that tends to be therapy for the artist. Do you see it that way? Is your art a way to keep your sane?
I wouldn't say it's a therapy in the sense that I use it as a tool, but without dance, I definitely go crazy very quickly. Or to put it another way, I
Yes.
find it very difficult to relate to reality without or outside of my dance. So on stage is where I find I can finally connect truly without pretending I'm like coping with reality and trying to do what everybody else is doing, and I'm struggling with reality at my
Okay.
best. So
So it's the place where you feel at ease.
that's it. Yeah, not necessarily at ease, but where I feel I belong, where
I was gonna say that
where
word.
where I should be.
Where you should
As for the concept of my practice on stage being therapeutic to the audience, I think it's a possibility that it does move people, and I think I find it. I don't do it to move people, or with the plan to move people or to disturb people, but actually I do. And when people come to me at the end of a show and tell me, "Oh my God, you made me cry. Oh my God, you made me leave the room because it was too disturbing, and you moved so much in me that I'm going to keep this in me." And this is in a way what therapy does to you when you're so moved that you cry, or you're so moved that it's to the limit of being bearable. Also cry. I don't, my shows are not just making people cry or making people so disturbed. It hopefully makes people smile too, and laugh, and but it touches them somewhere deep in themselves in a way that is mysterious, and for me and for them. But I think that is the true meaning of art, really.
Yeah.
Is to connect people and deep inside, and to disturb in a way that is taking people out of their own mundane reality or way to connect to normal reality, to really like connect with themselves or to the world.
Does it feel for you when you perform or when you are preparing for a show? I don't want to say show, but for a piece. Does it feel mystical, like a spiritual practice, spiritual experience? Sometimes do you feel like you are a canal of something that is bigger than you? Is that
Definitely. I was brought up by atheist parents,
Me
a
too.
very very anti-God parents who perhaps I had to rebel with a little bit, in that sense that I probably was the only, in the nuclear family that brought me up, I was the only person who felt close to spirituality. So even though I don't associate myself to any religion or cult, or I believe Butoh dance brings me closer to what should be my spirituality. That's why I like to, it's a little bit of a joke when I describe my Butoh dance as Zen Punk, because it's so like contrast, but it is really
How you
what
feel
I
it.
believe it is for me, that combination of very punk and urban and rebellious, but also the Zen approach. And I think even though my own father was not a Buddhist and sort of rebelled against his Buddhist background, in my genes and in his also cultural approach to life, he was very Zen or very Buddhist in a way, being brought up in Vietnam. And And I do believe I took that from him too. So even though I'm not Japanese, I felt close uh, to the Japanese approach of Butoh from my Vietnamese upbringing. This yin and yang approach, this approach to life and to death also, that interact in a very balanced way, you know, in contrast with how life and death, or the attitude to death, is in the Western world. So I think that is very, yes, that is very true. Also, my main themes in my art is quite simple. I I choose I choose to work on the theme of being born, being being dead or dying, and what happens in the middle. But really, the two main elements for me are between being born and dying, and what comes after, which might be rebirth. And in a way, that's very spiritual to approach it that way.
So the beginning and the end have a big importance. And is it because you see life as a continuous cycle, or is because these two moments are so important in the life of everyone?
No, I think it's because of my understanding of the world as being one. That everything is connected, that all people are connected, that flowers connected to me, that I'm connected to the moon and I'm connected to the water. I feel very strongly about that. So I think it is, even though it's not necessarily religious, it's a sort of spiritual approach to what is life.
Oh, definitely,
and
yeah.
What is
Oneness.
Yes, oneness. Yes.
Oneness.
Yes.
And but you also have very strong political opinions and concerns, and you would like to I have the feeling that you, through your art and your communications, you also express ideas about how the world should change to be a better place for everyone. So how do you feel these two matters, that which are not separate, are part of the same, but sometimes you express, they come from the need of expressing different things? When you talk about politics in the war, it's much more rational, it's more about working with some sort of good some sort of ability with words to convince people about ideas. But when you work with your sense of unity and spiritual understanding of life, it's more abstract and it's less concrete.
I think my approach to Butoh is political in a very abstract way. Also, for instance, well, maybe the best example I could use is how when I dance, I feel connected to my blood, to my ancestors, to people who came before me. And one of the pieces, for instance, that meant a lot to me was the reliving the Vietnam War and the atrocity that Vietnamese refugees and the Vietnamese victim of the Vietnam War had to experience, and to sort of pay an homage to them, but also relive their experience in a sort of as if my ancestors or people connected to them were taking me to dance and express myself on stage. So one of the pieces that I created was commissioned by Eastern Margin, which is a collective of the East Asian diaspora in London, and their event was called Yellow Peril. And so my son and I, we created a piece also called Yellow Peril in homage to their event, Eastern Margins event, which created the awakening of a ghost at the bottom of the Pacific Sea, from the boat people who had perished in this horrendous experience, were fleeing the war, and at the bottom of the sea, I met this ghost of a boat people person, and we danced together, and that was my piece, and that was my Butoh abstract spiritual way of being political.
Yeah.
In a way, obviously, the props that I used on that particular piece were created by our Wars Illegal project, screen printing.
Your other great
Yes,
project. Yeah.
yes. So I had also some messages that were a little bit more urban, human, political. So I had like defend refugees, protect refugees, no more war, war is illegal, and so that probably clashed quite a lot with the Butoh ghostly dance at the bottom of the sea with the person who had perished, because it was more like, as you say, more intellectual and verbal and human, and how to say it? It was more like intellectually,
stimulating ideas
yes,
than
yes,
senses.
mental, yes.
Even if ideas are also related with the senses, but you
Yes.
you know what I mean.
Also, my commitment to supporting peace is, even though it's political in a way, I believe it's in my body as well. It's abstract as much as the rest of my Butoh dance practice. I think.
Movement and aesthetic expression can be political, because, for example, the way that you look for beauty in different ways is already a political, very determined action. The fact that I'm going to look for beauty not in the classical way, but in this way, that's already a way of creating a message.
Yes, and as I said earlier, for instance, my belief that passports or borders should not exist. My connection with my will extends to stick to one culture or another, or to be Vietnamese or Japanese or French or English. My belief that my art, or all people's art, should go beyond borders is very strong, and that's also sort of abstract, or you can express it in a very abstract way too, I believe.
Yeah. And talking about that, you made me remember this presentation. It was like an underground happening in front of the Saatchi Gallery, and you had to move from there because the security took you out, and I saw it, and
Yes.
we were actually saying how contradictory it is. It is a museum, it is a place for art, and they can't have a beautiful little dance in front of the entrance of this institution, because it's illegal or it's not permitted or it shouldn't happen. How that was completely spontaneous, right?
It was spontaneous, but it meant quite a lot to me, and it was quite me.
To put it as
Yes,
it was.
so that experience, I was very flattered to be booked by one of my artist friends, Conrad Armstrong, who was showing an art, his painting in the Saatchi Gallery. So for the opening, he wanted me to do a performance indoors in the beautiful Saatchi space that I was very flattered to be invited to. I thought like, oh, I'm a successful artist now. I go to Sachi Gallery, but I think it was interesting that after the end of the official show indoors, all my friends who were all waiting for me outside and who were part of a collective from Hackney Wick as well, waited for me and waited for Conrad Armstrong, the artist who was, and then spontaneously we did what we usually do in Hackney Wick, which was a spontaneous underground industry, not planned, and it was much more us. But it was also interesting to see how suddenly the security we got in trouble for it, and
you couldn't do it.
But I think that's other element of my practice, but also Butoh in general, that I was attracted to, is that it's right from the beginning of the founding of Butoh, it was very avant-garde, and I think it's a little bit like street art or wild nature or wildflowers. They can't go. It's very difficult to see street art other than in the ghetto or other than in the street. If you put street art in a museum, it doesn't work anymore. If you put a wildflower with a beautiful pot and in a posh place, over the top decorated, it doesn't work. You have to see wilderness in wilderness. And, I think I like this aspect of my art and my practice, that it really truly belongs to the underground. So it makes it harder. It makes it poorer as well. And sometimes I wish I was a little bit less of an underground artist. I wish sometimes that I was on stage with beautiful lights and beautiful floors and a wonderful, rich audience that would give me loads of money.
But it's not you.
It would maybe not me as much as when I perform in Hackney Wick or in the street or in more, as you say, underground art happenings. And I think that is what I like about Butoh. And that is also why Butoh took a long time to be a little bit recognized or even known at all. I think soon after it was founded in the 50s, 60s, early 60s in Japan, in the very underground part of Tokyo, in the very seedy streets, and that were really close to brothels and seediness and the harshness of that kind of life as well. It soon was exported to the very experimental New York art happening of the 60s or 70s that were not that wanted freedom from the rigidity of the conventional art or the conventional performing art or the conventional rules of what dance meant. So
you want to somehow is that contradiction have a place in you, as it happened with all of us, but you would like it to be more known, to have recognition, to occupy lovely, beautiful spaces, but at the same time you know that keeping it as it is what protects this form of art, because that's where it belongs somehow, right?
Yes, somehow it's very difficult to. I like to keep it fluid and I like to keep it free. Or it's not even that I like, it's that I need to keep it free. You know, even like boxing my art and myself and my soul into an artistic website, for instance, that is in itself very difficult. It's like being stuck in a in a museum or in a box or
in a frontier. It's putting
frontiers with border. You'll name this and you're that and you're. It's in a way, even though I dislike many things about social media or Instagram, or in a way it's a little bit more fluid. You know, it's less practical than if I have a website. But I'm struggling a lot with the concept of website for that reason, that I'm a bit too.
You don't need to have one. And coming back to the collaborations and also there are always very interesting generational creative alliances. People from different parts of the city, different motivations, different kind of sound. What are your main collaborations at the moment, and if you could describe them and explain me how they work differently one from the other?
I wouldn't say I'm closer to one collaborator than another, but basically what all my music collaborators have in common is that they're all committed to improvisation. And I think improvisation brings us, it's nearly a different art. Like me as an improviser, I feel more of an improviser than I feel a dancer in a way, even though I am a dancer, because it's a different approach to performing. So I feel like my body is more like an instrument. So my friend might have a clarinet or a keyboard or electronic, blah, blah, blah. Me, I have my body, but I think I connect more with musicians than I do with trained dancers, if in personality, in my approach, just because we are all improvisers, and we have that skills and that interest, basically. So most of the musician bands that I improvise with are committed to experimental music.
There's the fluffy.
So Fear of Fluffing, they're my best friends as well, and they also share that. They were my introduction to Hackney Wick in a way, on an artistic level, because they all live in Hackney Wick, and they were Hackney Wick for me, and they were that idea that I have of another way to live, another way to be as an artist, another way to connect to community,
to belong,
and to make art in a spontaneous way. A little bit tucked in as it used to be, not so much now anymore, obviously, with gentrification. Hackney Wick is very different. But it was for a long time a little island that was not very well known because it was too rough, too poor, too post-industrial, and only crazy artists who didn't have much money were brave enough to go in there. But because of that, it was also makes them much more free than they would have been in other parts of London, where it was much more expensive, but also like compartmentalized. So Fear of Fluffing is yes, they do a lot of experimental.
Since when have you been working with them? I know it's long.
I'm not very good at numbers, but it must be getting close to 10 years now.
Okay.
So what attracted me to them was also that they were performing with crazy costume, very psychedelic, very dada, very surrealist in a way, but very beautiful costumes, because they're all artists as well as musicians, most of them. And what I loved as well is that they were performing on a big trolley, a massive trolley, and all their instruments were dragged on a chain like that. So I was dancing around them in the street of Hackney Wick when they were performing from one street of another, and it was like creating a mini festival around them.
Amazing.
And people were like mesmerized, because
I have seen some things online, but I don't think it's the same to watch that through a screen than actually experiencing it on the street.
My other collaborators,
they have a more noisy industrial kind of sound.
Yes.
And they are from South London, right?
That's it.
What's the name of the...
Ampersand. Like the sign ampersand, infinity sign ampersand.
Are they also younger?
Actually, what connects me to them is the fact that they are a 3 generation and all the families. So you have the son, who's my son's age. You have the dad, who's my age, and the father, who's who's older, obviously. So 3 generations working together, and obviously getting on well together as much as I connect with my son when I perform with them, or my sons. So I really was attracted to them for this reason, but mainly because of this amazing sounds. Their instruments that are made from found object, but mainly metallic. So you have upside down piano, disconstructed this object, but a lot of metallic copper metal that is banged. So
it reminds me of La Fura del Baus. I don't know.
No, I don't know.
But there are some groups that they have this kind of sense of sound, but also very a presence in stage that is big and industrial and metallic and
so the noise, typical noise, even though it's an avant-garde, the industrial noise music is very harsh to me and very dark and very I like that, but I wouldn't like to dance on it.
Okay. Fair enough.
In contrast, Ampersand's noise is very ambient, but also it feels very spiritual to me, even though they wouldn't like it if
that definition.
They're not at all religious either. But because
spiritual and religious is very
yes,
different.
I know. And their sound really resonates in me because it's metallic and it's a bit like the way church bells makes you vibrate.
Yeah.
And because they're very massive, they're nearly as big as the ceiling, and like they are so big, their instruments, they look like magnificent metallic sculptures really, but you need like a massive stage. So we don't perform very often together because many venues where I perform, the stages simply can't accommodate how big they
How do they keep all the
those
instruments?
They have a warehouse where
they definitely have to have one.
It means that for setting up the instruments, it takes 10 times longer than just somebody with the normal band, basically. The last time I performed with them was actually at the end of the lockdown, where to calm my nerve when the lockdown was giving me difficulty, making me feel crazy.
Okay.
I was trying to calm myself down with Sufi music, and I just got interested in researching Sufism and Sufi music.
It is amazing.
It's very interesting.
I went once in Istanbul to a show and with dancers.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Dervish,
I wish at that time I knew better, because it was such a surprise for me. I wasn't prepared for what I experienced, and then I kept researching after, and I love it. I love it.
That's what I did during the lockdown. Yeah.
So
it was like I was like watching them go round and round and round, and I was like, yes, this is calming my lockdown craziness.
That reminds me the tarot card, the Wheel of Fortune, which is you have to keep yourself at peace, even if everything moves around you.
Yes,
that's the ideal state of peace.
Yes,
basically.
Yes. So this was at the end of the lockdown, the last opportunity I had to dance with them, and it was outdoor as well. Their instruments were actually on the pontoon on the canal in my favorite venue in Hackney Wick at Grow. So Grow had booked us on the canal, and I was dancing outside. It was full moon, I think, as well. So it was like, whoa, and it was the first time we were together performing. So it was like, whoa, so beautiful. My costume was actually inspired, not like copying, trying not to do cultural appropriation, but inspired by the Sufi twirling skirts that were going like that, all white, and their ampersand's beautiful metallic sounds really like transported everybody, and including the
It
dancers.
elevated everything.
Yes, we were flying.
Oh my God, amazing.
It felt very
you deserve it after such a long lockdown for musicians and for performers. It has to have had been very difficult, very difficult. It was difficult for me, but I don't think it's the same for people which their work and their way to create and feel alive is related with stages, being in touch with other people, having shows in front of others, because
it was very
the
difficult.
lockdown really took away all that.
Yes,
all
it
that.
was.
Was it also complicated from a mental health point of view?
Yes, it was actually, because it's my mental health is very fragile, and I have a chronic personality disorder. I hate that word, but it has to be used because
as the diagnosis.
Yeah, I don't mind. So I am a chronic mental health sufferer, and after many years of therapy and working on myself and so on, I can work with it, and I can incorporate my art. I can incorporate my psychosis or my different way of approaching the world with my borderline personality. But I must say, it took just 1 week of lockdown for me to be triggered back to square one. You know, I really had a big severe relapse in severe mental health difficulty since the very beginning of the lockdown. So I'm still recovering from it, and I just have to work with it. It's not new to me, so but I believe the more I use my skills and my art to heal myself, also exteriorize it.
Exteriorizar. I was gonna say no, that's Spanish. That doesn't help.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I find it very difficult because I was performing less and being less in touch with my dancing body. It was and feeling completely separated from people. It was
difficult. And how did you got diagnosed with that disorder? What happened in your life? How did you realize that you were suffering from something, and it was not just your personality, the way you were, and that's it?
I suppose I've always probably had that personality. It's a little bit I think it's a little bit like autism. Having a borderline personality disorder is a little bit like autism. You can be functional, you have different spectrum. I mean, but it's definitely another way, another brain, another way to apprehend the world, another way to see the world. I think the concept of neurodiverse which is very new but super useful to people like me, is very helpful.
We all somehow have a level of something.
Exactly, but it's interesting to have that concept that you're not crazy, you're just different.
The neurodiversity,
Yes.
The other day we were interviewing a photographer. She has autism, and I was feeling like I have that.
Yes.
She was describing why her perception of things were particular or peculiar, and I felt like 8 of the things she mentioned, I felt the same.
Yes, nice. It's interesting.
It is.
I think I was always probably a very imaginative child, and definitely always very, very well, first I would never slept at night, and my imagination was running all the time, and also
when you don't sleep during the day, you have a very interesting perception of everything, to say the least.
Yes. you do. Yeah.
I don't think interesting is the proper word, but you have a distorted perception of
it's
everything.
very different.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But also, I think not just a different approach to the reality or to the world, but also different approach to death, as I mentioned earlier, which has always been very, very important to me. I've always been, even when I was in primary school, I was writing poetry about death, which is a little bit strange for a primary school child, but
a bit obscure.
Yes, I've always been interested in death and exploring what death is, and so that was definitely quite different. I suppose I was diagnosed many years later in my life, a bit too late, so it would have been useful to be diagnosed earlier.
Would you have loved that?
Yes, it would have been much easier instead of pretending. Yes.
Instead of trying to accommodate to the perception of others.
Because since I've been diagnosed, I was maybe like 15 years ago, I can use it to my benefit, and I can see that it's not just a disorder and something bad that is makes me struggle. It's also it enabled me to realize that it's also a big asset. And without having borderline personality disorder, I would probably be a completely different artist, or not an artist
or
at
not
all.
At all.
Yes. Yeah. I think the fact that
it defines you as human being, but also as artist.
Yes.
Completely.
Or especially as a performer. I think this disorder, this condition, or whatever you call it, this kind of personality, one of the criteria to describe it is that it's very difficult to have a sense of self that is stable, and I think it's one of the big difficulty for me. So
that sounds like a superpower.
It's a superpower if you want to be a performer. That's probably why I find it very easy to go from one character to another.
The aim is to embrace change, what makes a performer amazing.
Or change costume 5 times a day, which I do, probably a bit like you were saying. But also the fact that, unless I'm with the audience, or unless I'm with the person I love or the person I connect with, I don't actually feel I exist. I just feel like I'm flying into space. That
makes so much sense. Why you?
And I'm just waiting for that moment when I'm with them again, or I'm on stage again to be alive.
That makes so much sense to me. That's why you have that strong sense of community, because it makes you be you.
Yes, exactly.
It reinforces you.
And if I don't dance, I don't exist. If I'm not in that community, I don't exist. If I'm not with that close friend, I don't exist. Or if I'm not with my children,
I don't exist. Well, in those moments, you just need to remember or try to feel that flower, that water, that all you are as well.
I know. That's why. That's why.
Do you meditate? As part of your
swimming
training?
Is my meditation, and dancing as well. So before I was, until recently I was doing a lot of lengths in the pool, and I used to be obsessed with that metaphor of follow the line at the bottom of the pool, which is really, in effect, my meditation, really.
Yeah, there are so many ways we can meditate. Yes. The important is to find that space where you can find space, actually, and not being crowded with thoughts or feelings or emotions that doesn't allow you to just be, and in the more relaxed way possible.
Yes.
And we have been talking for a long time, and we haven't even touched half of the matters this amazing lady could be talking about, but I wouldn't like to say goodbye without talking about the brand, the clothing brand you have with your partner. It's another collaboration as well.
Yes, it is.
And you have a stall in Brick Lane.
In Brick Lane.
Since when? How is that going? Why it does exist? And is it well received? Because the message of that cloth is quite political.
Very political. The
Yeah.
name of our project is War is Illegal.
Illegal, yeah.
And screen printing on upcycle or fabric or vintage clothes only. So our two main mission in our project is to spread of a message of peace and anti-war, but also a message of hope and commitment to defending planet Earth.
Okay.
In encouraging fashion revolution and supporting the movement of not wasting and recycling, upcycling, and just
giving a
ending
second
this-
chance to things that you may not like
Exactly.
it, just changing them, making
Exactly.
them more beautiful, or more customizing them, making them look more like you, but not throwing them away like if they couldn't be useful.
Yes. So my partner, who is also an artist and a performer, as he's a reggae MC and songwriter. So the Jamaican reggae and the Butoh is, you'd say, very, very different and like nothing to do together. But in concept, in the causes that we support, like the anti-war or the refugees or the concept of Rasta people say one love, and
Yes.
that's really
Yes.
believe that in
Yes.
one love, oneness, and no borders, we're all the same, and so on. So there are quite philosophically there are quite a lot of things that we have in common.
You never mentioned his name. He's priest.
Clapper priest.
Clever priest.
So we don't very often work together. We have done one collaboration together on a music video, which was quite a success.
I saw it. Beautiful.
Yes,
Beautiful.
I was really pleased with it. But what binds us together for collaboration is this project that started as a merchandise in a way, but also spreading the message that I spread in through my performing art, and that he definitely spreads in his lyrics when he writes his songs, which are very anti-war, protect planet Earth, and anti-capitalist, and it grew bigger and bigger, I suppose, over
Is
the
it a
years.
very important income for you as a family, that project?
Not yet. We are more artists and business people in that respect so far, but also mainly because it was a side project. We are mainly performers, so it was like a little side project. Obviously, it takes so long to perform or to do, so we didn't have to for many years, many time to concentrate
So
on
the
it.
idea probably was there for a long
But
time.
during the
until
lockdown,
Yeah.
we had more time because neither him or me could perform. So all our performances were cancelled. So my partner's been really busy on the project, and just I followed him, and it really helped me as well. Like not go down too much in my bad mental health during the lockdown. So, and then at the end of the first lockdown, we started. We opened a stall in Brick Lane, and I'm loving it because it's a community. I'm friends with my neighbors, my fellow traders, the local people. It's also Brick Lane is where I used to 30 years ago take my children. I feel like it's my local area really. So it's nice to
give back.
Yeah, to give back, and also to feel like I'm a Brick Lane artist, which is beautiful.
Amazing.
And
I love all your projects, and I would like to say goodbye with this phrase I found just for you today, just to share it with you. The only possible proof of the existence of water, the most convincing and the most intimate true proof, is thirst. To disappear into deep water is to disappear toward a far horizon, to become part of the depth of infinity. Such is the destiny of man that finds its image in the destiny of water. That's from Water and Dreams by Gaston Bachelard.
Wow. Well, as you know, one of the pieces I created with my son is called Water and Dreams. And
I know.
was different.
That's why I brought
it.
this to share with
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank you for
Yes.
coming. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the beautiful things you do for the humanity.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been my pleasure.
And I can see we've been connecting very, very well.
Can I kiss you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for staying with us this far. I hope you enjoyed that. And if that's the case, I would like to suggest you to enjoy the rest of our content. Also, if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell so you can get notifications every time we share a new episode with all of you.